Okay, welcome to the Hank Cisco Show. Ladies and gentlemen, don't touch that dial. We have a show here, a history-making show, okay? And I'll tell you more about the history-making a little later. So, my guest today is an assistant district attorney, second in command in the district attorney's office here in Montgomery County. Now, I want to introduce her, being myself a former professional boxer and referee. I'm going to introduce her like they do in Madison Square Garden or some big championship fight because she's a champion, okay? In this corner, Risa Ferman. Okay, I won't give the weight and the height, okay, because she's a fighter, okay? And I've been around a lot of corners, and I can see when people, can handle a job, and she's handled it very good. And I'm very proud that my tax money is paying her wages and keeping me safe, working with every police department in Montgomery County. So I'm very proud, being a former county detective. I can tell pretty well when somebody's doing a good job and who's who and what's what, okay? So, without further ado, Risa, tell me something about yourself now, okay?
I'll tell you something, Hank. I've been introduced in a lot of places and in a lot of ways. Never like that before. I got to just take you out with me and get that out everywhere. That was a great introduction. Thank you very much.
Well, you are a person that's been working in the district attorney's office. How many years you been in there now?
Believe it or not, it is my 15th year in the district
15 years.
Every time I say that, I like to say I started when I was 12, but of course that was not the case. I actually started in the DA's office when Mike Marino hired me.
Mike.
Met you. I know Mike's a friend of yours, and,
right.
and Mike was the DA back in 1992 when I interviewed with the office.
Right, and then Mike went, or Smythe was DA before him, right?
It was Judge Smythe, and then Tom Waters was the DA, and Mike took over, and I came in during Mike's second term.
Okay.
So he had been in the office for a while and had really just done some wonderful things in the office. And I had been, before I went to law school, I had been working in a family business, so I had a few years under my belt in business before I went to law school.
What kind of business now?
You may not know that. My family was involved in a jewelry business.
Oh, yeah?
And my father had stores, little retail jewelry stores, some of those little kiosks
Where?
in malls all around New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware.
Huh.
And from the time before I could
Wait a minute, that was your dad, you say?
My dad and mom together.
Yeah.
My dad was the business owner, business operator. My mom was an attorney. And my dad had me working in the stores before I could even see over the counters. I would be standing in the corner on a stool selling jewelry over that counter. So that was how I grew up, and that was how I was trained and grew up in business.
So you know something about business, okay.
Oh,
so
I know a lot about business.
You're looking at someone that's in law enforcement, but still you want to know something about business and people and getting to know people, getting the community and working with the community. And we're going to talk about that, and what you do and what you have been doing. We're not talking about what you're going to do. We're going to talk about what you have done and what you're going to do. But important now is that you are assistant district attorney, okay, under Castor, right? Bruce Castor.
I'm actually the first assistant district attorney.
Is that what they call it? Is that the title?
That is the title. I'm the second in command of our district attorney's office. I've had that spot. It's now my 6th year. I'll be finishing up my 6th year this year.
With that, in other words, second in command for 6 years.
That's correct.
Okay. And you've handled some heavyweight cases now. You want to just mention a couple?
Sure. Everything we do in the office is important. There are certain cases that tend to garner more attention than others. Bruce and I first worked together personally. I mean, although we worked in the office together on a murder case out of Lower Merion, it was Commonwealth versus Craig Rabinowitz. Some people might remember that.
What's a guy in the bathtub or something?
That's right. Woman was.
The coroner is the one that was able to find out.
That's right. Woman was killed in the bathtub. She died in the bathtub, and then coroner Hal Fillinger, who we all miss very much.
Great guy.
He just said, women don't just die in the bathtub. We're going to do an autopsy, and found out that she'd been strangled. Right. Bruce and I personally worked on that case together. Back then, I was a line assistant. I was working sex crimes primarily, doing child abuse cases, things like that. And he selected me to work on that case with him. And ever since then, he and I have worked on many cases together and partnered in running the office.
Right.
There was a very unfortunate incident a number of years ago at our state hospital, and Bruce and I together prosecuted a man named Dennis Chakowski, murderer, who is now serving a life sentence in prison. And just this year, even though I've had a lot going on this year, but just earlier this year I prosecuted 2 first-degree murder cases myself. A guy from Upper Merion named Patrick McCarthy, Lex McCarthy, for killing a woman in Upper Merion over at the Motel 6. And then another defendant named Joaquin Bird, who killed a woman over in the Cricket Catering in Ardmore.
Oh.
So I actually personally handled those myself.
Well, murder cases, you know, you have to be right on the ball, you know, and good investigation, preparing. And you have a good staff of the county detectives. I mean, that really, and I can vouch for that because I'm a former, but I know that Chief Oscar Vance has been in there for a long time. I worked when I was a policeman in Norristown, and he was a county detective, and then I became a county detective. He was a great boss, and they're doing a good job. I'm proud of the office and what you are now looking to be top brass, right?
I am. You know, it's not just the county detectives, the entire district attorney's office. We have a staff of 130 people. It's a big operation, and that's divided pretty much equally in 3 ways. About 40 or so assistant DAs, a support staff, and county detectives and investigators. And they work really seamlessly together and with all of our local law enforcement to make sure that the citizens of Montgomery County get the best quality service. I mean, I use the business term because that was my background, but we try to run it, even though it is a government agency, and some people might think of bureaucracy, we try to run it like a business, try to be efficient, try to be effective, try to deal with the particular problems that we have in the community, work within our own organization, work with the other organizations that we deal with, and it really is just a top-notch organization.
You know, the district attorney's office, the function of a district attorney's office is the policeman makes the arrest, right? He makes the arrest, prepares the information, gets the basic stuff, and then turns it over to not assistant, but district attorney's office. And then you make sure that the warrants are properly put together so they don't have illegal warrants and all. And then you prepare the case to take it to court. So that is very important.
I have to tell you, I mean, back when you were in the Detective Bureau, that is very much the way it operated.
It changed?
It has changed a little bit,
okay.
and here's how it's changed. You know, as people have become more sophisticated and people watch on television about crime shows and CSI, they have different kinds of expectations. Law enforcement has generally had to become more sophisticated and much more professional.
Right.
So back in the old days, I'll say.
Old days,
no,
that's all right.
No disrespect there.
Sure.
But back,
I used to get a loaf of bread for 5 cents, you know.
And a cup of
coffee.
coffee.
And one slice would be 7 cents. So go ahead.
Well, you know, back a number of years ago, the police operated separately from the DAs. The police did their investigation, they did their job, they turned it over, and the DA got what they got. There's much more collaboration today. I mean, now what happens is the police are called first. They're the first response to crime. They go out to the scene, but then they call the DAs. And they work together so the DAs can give legal advice, rather than the police, who are not always law trained, trying to figure out if they're doing something the right way. They'll call us, and we have assistant DAs that routinely go out, work with the police to make sure on the front end that the search warrants are done properly, that the proper guidelines are being followed, that if someone needs to be given Miranda warnings, they're given Miranda warnings. So while it doesn't happen in every case, it could never, with the number of assistant DAs compared to the number of police departments we have, it could never happen in every case. When the police feel they need legal guidance very early on, they'll call us and we work together so that we can start thinking at the very beginning of an investigation about what we're going to need later.
Don't mess it up, right? You
do
know.
it right. You do
it's
it right
like
once.
The Simpson case, maybe. Somebody messed up there as far as the evidence, the chain of evidence, right? Somebody.
You know, there are examples all over the country of things that have been done wrong, and that's why we work so hard.
And you don't want them to get away with it.
No.
You don't want a guy to get away with a technicality. If he robbed a bank or he's hurt somebody, you want to make sure that everything moves perfect. All the evidence and is presented properly, and you move on.
Well, there are two things. First, you want to get the right guy. Start there. We want to. Number one, we want to get the right guy. So we want to do a clean, thorough, detailed, comprehensive investigation. So we get the right guy. Then you get the right guy. You want to make sure it sticks. You don't want him or her to get off on a technicality. You know, everybody thinks, oh well, people get off on technicalities. You know, we don't want that to happen. We want to make sure that if someone commits a crime, we can do the investigation right, we do the prosecution right, and they're held accountable.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because it's the investigation of a district attorney's office also to find out the truth. It may be falsely accused. Somebody might be falsely accused, and your investigation will clear the person, you know, rather than saying, oh, arrest them, no, put them right in and don't worry about it, you know. Now, it's good. Investigation to convict or to find out he didn't do it.
It's,
okay?
you know, the investigation itself is a truth-seeking process.
Right.
It's never, you know, I sometimes hear on news, I hear these talking heads, they say, oh, you know, rush to judgment, they just figured out who they thought it was and they made everything fit. Not here in Montgomery County.
Wow.
This is a search for the truth, and once we find out what happened, then we put the case together.
Right.
So you're absolutely right. It is most important that we work together from the very beginning to find out exactly what happened.
And the district attorney's office also is, you're not waiting there for something to happen so you can take it to court. You also, I know that you get involved in the community. Mm-hmm. It's sort of a, you know, the district attorney's office is really not a crime prevention unit. That's a separate unit. But you could be working along to see that preventing and educating people, right?
Sure.
So tell me some of the things that how you can help the community, whether it's youth or what.
There's certainly the crimes that occur that police respond to and DAs prosecute, and our job comes just in presenting the case in court. And that's an important part of what we do. But there's also a part of what we do that's focused on working with the community to prevent crime,
right.
working with the community to gather information to deal with specific community problems. So we're very active and have been as long as I've been in the DA's office, right. With local, with community groups all across the county, whether it's schools, with religious groups, with
right.
Local Kiwanis or Rotary or things like that, both to get to know the community and also to gather information. You know, for example, here in Norristown, there will be certain neighborhoods or certain streets where neighbors and people who live there have problems. Yeah. And they'll call us and they'll be in touch with us. There are a lot of different resources right. people have. When we know there's a problem somewhere, we go to address it. We have a tip line that's set up both a phone tip line and internet tip line. And we have it in English and in Spanish, so people can anonymously provide information to us all across the county about what they know, and then we can send detectives to follow up. Right. And that's just been an incredible tool for people in the community if they have some fear about coming directly to the police, to be able to do it in an anonymous way right. where they're protected, but then the police get the information that they have. Another example, just 2 days ago, I think it was Monday, I was with the U.S. Attorney, Pat Meehan, in Lower Merion, and we were introducing—
That's U.S. Attorney.
Pat Meehan is our right. U.S. Attorney, and we were introducing a program to bring an internet safety game, a detective game called Missing, to every middle school in Montgomery County. And the idea of this game is it teaches young teenagers and preteens how to be safe mm-hmm. online. So we do things like that with our kids to make sure that our kids mm-hmm. are going to be safe in school, and particularly focused on middle schoolers because they're at that age where they're becoming very sophisticated with phones right. and computers right. and access to things that they don't really know how to deal with all the time. Mm-hmm. So we're very focused on giving them some tools to help keep themselves safe. We could spend all day and I could talk to you about the different programs we do, but
well,
it's just—
I know myself when I was
constant.
At the DA's office, we used to go into schools and just display on different types of weapons that were used, different types of drugs that were the teachers were not aware of. Mm-hmm. To know, you know, the old story: an informed nation is a peaceful nation. You got to know, you know, what drug looks like, what's illegal, what, you know. I remember there was a killing or a slicing on the subways in Philadelphia, and the guy got cut across the neck, and they were looking around for the knife. They figured, well, it had to be a knife, but it was not a knife. You know, it was a guy would get a top of a can, and he would bend it and put it in his hand, and he'd slip it and cut him. So you're looking around, and you'd see a tin can. You wouldn't think of it, but that's looking the area. You know, search the area for a crime scene. Okay, so that's something that. Same thing with the brass knuckles or so. Kids were using chains and putting around right. using brass knuckles. Well, they got them in their pockets. What are they doing with that? They're for snow, you know. So that's another thing. So you keep the people informed so they know. And the district attorney's office works with for the people. You don't. It's not like a lawyer. They're all lawyers, but you don't pay to get a district attorney to defend you. You're defending, right?
We represent.
That's what a lot of people feel. Oh, I don't want to just go to cost me money. No.
We represent the citizens of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and here in Montgomery County, the citizens of the County of Montgomery. And that's why we get so involved in our communities, because we know how important it is to communicate with people. We know how important it is that they feel comfortable, that they can come talk to us when there's a problem. You know, one of the things I did over the course of the summer in the past few weeks, in August, there's National Night Out. It's National Night Out Against Crime. Right. I have been in Norristown during night outs over the years. And National Night Out is a great time for law enforcement, not just DAs, but law enforcement generally, to mix with the public.
Good to get together,
exactly.
right.
And you know, when I was out at these events all across the county, we had the county detectives come, we had this great crime scene van we would bring out, and we would set up tables, as you talk about, with the ballistics evidence, with computers, to show people what we do. And we had DAs and detectives and different people from our office all out interacting with the community, just so people can kind of see us not in a crisis situation. You know, so often they see us when there's a crisis, when somebody, God forbid, has been killed, when a child's been hurt, when something bad has happened. So it's a great time for them to interact with us and develop relationships with us. So if they see something in their neighborhood, they're comfortable calling. You know, it's nice. I can say, well, look, we're available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you know my phone and pager. They go off at those hours. But people have to feel comfortable. They have to have that trust. So that's why we go out and we're so involved in the community.
But, you know, I have to think now, the big thing is, district attorney, when you have a murder case and you have to come up with, it's going to get the electric chair. What did you call that?
Capital punishment.
Capital punishment. That's what they call that, number one, right?
Definitely.
And that's the decision you have to make. You're going to be fighting to see that this fella gets the electric chair or whatever. In Pennsylvania, it's electric chair. I remember there was a policeman, I don't want to mention his name, but he was saying, oh, I retired, now I'm getting mellow. He says, when I was a policeman, I think that I would pull a switch on the electric chair, and I'd pull a switch, you know. He says, but now that I retired and I'm getting mellow, I don't think they should, you know, so he says, I think they should get rid of the electric chair. I think they should. Now that I'm mellow, I think that now they should use a bench, get 6 at a time, you know, but I don't know. That's not a
Don't tell me
campaign,
who that was.
but that's, I won't mention the guy, but it's something to think about. Some people are, you know, against the death penalty, some are for it, some are against it. I was reading in the paper here a case today where some of the people in the jury said that they wouldn't convict, you know, even though, regardless of what they would do. I mean, you know, that's people's opinion, but somebody has to be there.
Sure.
Okay?
That's why you take, as the court does, so much time to select that jury.
Right.
And here in Montgomery County, you know, we're in an interesting situation because we're very close to Philadelphia. I mean, right there on our border, and everybody knows it's very public right now what's going on with the murder rate in Philadelphia. It's crazy. Yeah. And you would think, perhaps, that because we're so close, it would bleed over into the county. I have to knock wood when I say this. We've had 4 this year so far. 4 murders compared to close to 300 in our neighboring jurisdiction. And you know, Bruce and I working together in the office with the detectives, with the staff, I mean, we are certain that one of the reasons that we're able to keep a stem on that kind of violent crime, I mean, not just the homicides, but the violent crime, is because of the aggressive work that we do with the police. When the police and the DAs and the entire law enforcement community, local police, county detectives, everyone works together. We work with the state police, we work with the Attorney General's office, with the federal authorities. When you have everybody working together for the common goal.
No, that didn't happen years ago.
It didn't happen years ago.
I know.
Well, I mean, you can understand when I talk about it. You know, you understand the difference. A lot of people who are watching, they might say, "Well, of course that's the way it is," but that's not always the way it is.
There was divisions. There were divisions.
Absolutely.
Some didn't want
egos.
District attorney, you know,
everybody separate.
tell me what to do, and it was a problem. You know, well, no, even up to when Kennedy was assassinated, there was the FBI and the Secret Service. No, they were all fighting among themselves, and as a result of transfer, the guy got shot. I mean, there was friction there. Now one department takes over the whole thing. You know.
Well, I wouldn't know about how the federal government works, but I can tell you.
Well, I'm saying that's what happens
on the county level, and even when I started, it wasn't like this. You know, 15 years ago when I came in, I got my files. I mean, I would get files and say, here, you're going to court tomorrow, and I would have to jump in and go to trial. And I often found things that I wished I had that weren't in there, or some mistakes that were made. And it wasn't really until we all started working together.
Honest mistakes. They were honest mistakes.
You know what? Honest mistakes are honest mistakes. But if you're going to court tomorrow,
I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear no mistakes. I don't want no excuses. I don't want no mistakes. I want the right stuff.
Sure, and I'm demanding, and people know that.
I don't blame that. You're a fighter. That's what I told you. I announced you in Madison Square Garden, in this corner, right, Rock? See the studio there, right?
So it's different than it was, and that's why we're so proud of it, because there's a tangible effect that it has on the community. It really is able to make our county a really safer place to live and a wonderful place to live.
All right, now I'm going to ask you, how did you get to know a good friend of mine and a good mutual friend? former Madame.
Madam Justice Sandra Schultz Newman.
Right, and a good friend of mine, right, for years when she was the first county detective, woman county detective. She's the
Assistant
first.
District Attorney.
And the district attorney. She was assistant district attorney.
That's right, she was.
And then she was the first woman in the Supreme Court, right?
Justice Newman was the only woman ever elected to the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania,
Right.
ever in our history.
And she was my friend, right?
She's a friend of mine, as you know, too. You know, I first met her when I was 15 years old. And she was a lawyer in Montgomery County, and my mother was a lawyer in Montgomery County. They both practiced family law. And I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but they were just two tough broads.
Right.
They were great. They were, you know, they were such great role models. My mom was a great role model for me, and Justice Newman was as well. And I watched her as you know, a young teenager, and watched the way she handled herself and how she didn't take anything from anyone.
Well,
And she was a really impressive woman for a young girl at that point for me to look at. And for a long time I didn't see her. I mean, certainly knew who she was, and I followed her career.
I've seen her for a while.
And she was elected to the Supreme Court. And over the years, I met up with her, and I would see her and often talk to her, and she followed my career in the DA's office. And while she was on the court, there was a point in time where when I was appointed to serve on a Supreme Court committee, the Criminal Rules Committee. I still serve on that committee.
Right.
And that's a group of lawyers, it's I think about 16 lawyers from across all of Pennsylvania that were picked to operate as the rulemaking committee to help the Supreme Court make recommendations, and that's also how I got to know her more.
I just saw in the paper today where a good friend of mine, Castile, might move up into chairman of the, or what do you call it, chairman, the top of the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania.
The Chief Justice.
Yeah, Chief Justice.
Well, Justice Newman has been for I guess since about June or so, working on my campaign with me.
Well,
you know,
she's going to help you.
She's been helping me on
Well,
the
I helped
campaign.
her campaign when she ran for the Commonwealth Court and then the Supreme Court. Okay, and we went down to. We went, and she was. She's. I don't know. I always thought she was half Italian, but she had a love for Italian food anyhow, and Italian friends. And I said, well, why don't we're going to get down with Joe Rizzo, and we were going to get down to 9th Street and go up and down. She was campaigning for the Supreme Court. And so I made these here, so that a lot of Italians down there, buona fortuna, you know, I mean, good fortune, Judge Newman, and grazie means thank you. And we were passing these things out, and Joe Rizzo and I, and we were working along. And
it's a shame. It's a shame I can't campaign down on 9th Street. That's my old neighborhood.
Well,
I live down there.
I'll get them and put you down there put your name on it. But she has been a great person. And here's another one with her, with a couple of friends of Norristown when she was campaigning. You know, two people here that she was just great, you know. And anytime they had some kind of affair or something, she would call me, Cisco, I got something here, I'm going to campaign or something. It was really always bubbling, always, you know, always keeping the ball bouncing, let's put it that way.
She's a fighter.
All right, now tell me something about your family now, okay? What school did you go to?
I grew up, you know, born in Philadelphia, and lived for a few years right on the border of Montgomery County and Philadelphia, Montgomery County and Philadelphia, and that's where I spent my early years. My dad and mom, you know, my dad's Italian.
Your mother was a lawyer, right?
My mom's a lawyer, and my dad's family's Sicilian, so I'm half.
What's a Sicilian?
I'm a half-breed.
Oh, it's all right. You're half Sicilian. That's what I'm half Sicilian. I'm half Sicilian, half Calabrese. So that's
right.
when you hear half Calabrese and half Sicilian, it's gasolina matches.
That's a dangerous combination. So I grew up, part of my family lived in South Philadelphia, and so we would spend time down there, and then the other part lived up in the northeast part of Philadelphia. But by the time I was 10, I was living in Montgomery County. I grew up in Abington High School, Abington grad.
Right.
Went to the University of Pennsylvania. I stayed in Philadelphia. I couldn't get away from this area. And then I went to Widener Law School. I actually didn't go right from college. I was, after college, did my time working in a restaurant as a waitress.
Well, all right, now tell me something. Is it a connection of a restaurant in Philadelphia connected with your family?
Oh, that's my brother.
Oh.
My brother has 2 restaurants.
2 restaurants, and they're pretty classy places.
Yeah, they're pretty nice places.
Yeah.
You got to get down there. You got to get down there. You got to save.
Hey,
you got to save a little money for that.
Some samples up here for our crew here. What's the name of them?
Well, there are 2. One of them is Vetri, which is my maiden name. Vetri. That was my brother Mark's first restaurant. He has the location that's on Spruce Street that was George Perrier's first location.
Okay.
So that is a terrific restaurant there. And then he just opened a little while ago, earlier this year, Osteria, which is up on North Broad Street.
Osteria. What's that mean? What's it?
Osteria is it's
A name of a person?
It's a name actually of a type of restaurant in Italy.
Yeah, because there's one up on Evansburg Road.
That's right, there is
right.
the same name.
And what's the name? Dean Garofolo. He's a impersonator for Elvis Presley. He's there every Friday night.
Oh, okay.
He sings. Great. And that's the name of that. And that place is packed. He keeps the place rumbling, you know, rumble.
Well, Mark's place is packed, but I don't think he has an Elvis impersonator down there. I'll have to make that suggestion to him.
Well, so now for a district attorney, you're going to be running for a district attorney right here in Montgomery County.
I am right now.
Right. So and Sandra is going to be your campaign person, right? And I'm going to have her. I like to have her. I'm going to have. She was DA. I mean, the assistant DA, and I like to have her on my show.
She's the best.
I'm going to give her a call.
You know what I love about her? She's just fierce. She's intimidated by nothing. She's a powerhouse. You know, that's the kind of person you want in your corner.
Okay. All right. Now, I'm getting a signal. Hey, Gumbadi. All right. So, Risa, it's been a pleasure. I'm telling you. And ladies and gentlemen, this half hour just went just like that. And I'm looking at the crew behind the cameras and all got an education, something about the district attorney's office. And I'm so happy that you were able to. I know your busy schedule. But ladies and gentlemen, I really appreciate the fact that you watch. A lot of people stop me along the way and say, we watch the show. And I appreciate that. I appreciate that very much. And all I say that we have people running for office, but the most important thing is vote, okay? Get out and vote. Let's show your power of the ballot box, okay? So, Risa, grazie. And then we say over here, and in Paisan, they say, Allah salud, to your health, everybody, okay?